right.
Well, here we are. I'm here with Mr. Marc Joseph from the Marc Joseph Band.
How's it going, Shane?
How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
All is well. Another wonderful day in the neighborhood. Another day in paradise, as I like to say. I was going to put the hair down for this one just so that we could twin it up a little bit, but I noticed you're wearing your glasses, so that
Okay, so you know what? I'll just get rid of them then. There you go.
No, we're okay. The glasses made it a little bit closer to the twin thing, but it got me thinking too about growing long hair, especially long curly hair. Most of my life, I had a hairdresser that was a friend of my mom who would cut my hair. And as a kid, I always wanted it short, didn't want long hair. It was too much of a mess. I dreaded the growing it out phase. And she would always tell me, I make hundreds of dollars every month making women's hair look like yours. Why won't you just grow it long, right? And so it wasn't until I got into my first serious band and we were jamming, we were getting ready for our first big show. And I was looking at the band being like, nobody on the stage, front of the stage, our drummer had long dreads, but nobody at the front of the stage had long hair at all. We do not look like a band. So I need to do something about this. So I took it upon myself to go through that awkward, and I'm sure you could probably relate. It doesn't go down, it goes out, right? And so you grow this, it's not even like an afro, it's just this tangled mess of hair. And then eventually gravity kicks in, it falls, and away you go. But my real reason for not wearing it down is I'll play with it. I'm a bit autistic. I have to do things with my hands. That's what the beard's for. I used to have my lip pierced, and so I could kind of play with that with my mouth, and that would satisfy me, but had to take it out for a job I had. But what's your origin story on your long hair?
So that's actually ties in very much with my music evolution. So my first band that I was in was a band called Eye of Morning, as in the morning eyeballs, the beginning of the day eyeballs. That was one of the names that other people used to call us, the morning eyeballs. And then EOM, which was another the acronym of the name. So when I started with that band, I had long hair. I was already shooting as a photographer. Long hair was kind of, I don't know, I guess this was maybe 20 years ago. So long hair was kind of in for me at the time, and just getting in sync with my sexuality. I just got kind of out of the stage of having a lot of very rock and roll inspired friends who just colored their hair pink and very punk, more punk, and kind of not necessarily straight edge, but that kind of shave your head or dye it purple or pink or blue or whatever. Go to So Hip It Hurts every Saturday and check out what's new on the floor there. Go to Queen Street and check out the new Vans or whatever. So that was kind of the style. So I started with really short hair, and I started going crazy. I had a buddy who was a hairstylist, and he just started working on me as an experiment. And I'd come home with all different kinds of color hair, meet a lot of weirdos on the bus. I mean, it takes one to attract one, I guess. So a lot of strange people would come out of the blue. And then I started playing music in this band, and I started to grow my hair. It just felt right at the moment. And I mean, the Rastas, even a lot of Sikh beliefs are that you hold a lot of information and energy in your hair. So I mean, Samson, the story of Samson and Delilah. Samson was a great king. He was, his strength came from his hair. Delilah, that bitch, she cut his hair off while he was sleeping. So I mean, the hair. I'm just joking, Delilah. Anyways, I'm not trying to hate on anybody, but the point was the hair. I identified it with as kind of being a strength of mine and holding a lot of this information. That band lasted about 5 years. We did really, really well. We actually was one of the best writing project bands that I was in. We wrote so many tunes, and half of which I don't even remember, which is the sad thing. And then we never really got recorded. But we had, I guess, within that 5-year span, maybe about 40, 50 tunes that we had written. And that was pretty impressive for me at the time, because I was just starting on my musical journey with others, with in an organized group. And then when that band kind of fell apart, I cut my hair and I joined a little bit of a heavier band, and it went back to the coloring and this and that. I mean, for me, I guess the image of the long hair was so closely associated with the other band that I need to start fresh. So I cut the hair off, and then I went into this band called Forces, and it was kind of a little bit more like and then vocals singing like, like very Mars Volta, or like if you want to get into like dredge, you know what I mean, or like this catatonia, or this kind of sound, like really aggressive, like almost like ready to hear some screamo, but then you got this beautiful like kind of melodic entry with the vocal. Well, maybe beautiful is a little bit of a stretch, but this kind of idea. And then that band folded, and then I just say, you know what, screw this. I'm tired of getting my hair cut, tired of dealing with other people. I'm just gonna start playing music. And I just went to this little hole in the wall every Friday and invited a bunch of musicians, and the hair just got longer, man. It just kind of, the yellow tips kind of grew out into, into my ends, and then they just kept growing, and I just kept missing my haircut appointments. And then out of that open jam and out of that experience, the Marc Joseph Band evolved. And the reason it evolved with my name was because at the time there wasn't even really members. We just had gig offers, and I didn't know who the hell was in my band. So I was just like, okay, we're gonna just call it my name, which is Marcos Joseph Rivera. And just abbreviate it so that it's a little bit more pronounceable. It doesn't sound quite so much like maybe like one of these I guess like mariachi bands, the Marcos Joseph Rivera Band. It's like, where are the trumpets? Where's the sombreros? So I just kept it simple with the Marc Joseph Band, and then the members kind of became more permanent. We kind of discussed talking about maybe evolutionizing the name. But at that point, we had so many gigs and we already had so much press and stuff like this. It was just like, it was kind of like starting again from square one if we were to change it. So we just kept the band name and then started dividing things equally among the members, So I had all the responsibility, and they made,
That's a good little
the evolution of the hair. The evolution
Yeah.
of the hair, man.
Well, there's a lot to be kind of unraveled there. Like it was a great way to get you to go through the history of your bands, right? So there,
Yeah, for sure.
That. But what you got into there about it, like storing memory and the energy and whatnot. I mean, there's lots of indicators of that. There's the old story with the Native American trackers, how they brought them all in to help the military learn tracking, and then they cut off all their hair, gave them the brush cut, and they couldn't track as well anymore.
Oh, wow.
Very strange, right? And because they do have that belief that it connects them to the earth, it connects them to memory, it connects them to their ancestors. And yeah, and it would seem that there's some truth to that. And I, as someone with long hair, I know pretty much anytime I do decide to cut it, it's usually comes at a time where like I'm kind of like what you're saying, like you're getting out of one band, you're moving into another, some type of transition like that, where I'm like, I just, something fresh, something needs to change. And just as a practice of magic, if you will, or a ritual, cutting my hair has been one of them. So as an example,
how do you feel when you cut your hair?
Well, it is very different, right? Like last year, May 2020, I made a big life decision, like something that was like, a monumental decision for me personally. And just before that, I had cut my hair, and I realized that the change that I made, I already had in my mind while I was cutting my hair. It was like a kind of like a way to signify I needed to make a change. It was like something that I would see in the mirror every day and remind myself, no, you need to do this change. You need to perform this change. And I kind of used it as that, and it worked very well, right? So just, call that my own craziness, or call that magic, or whatever you want to call that. It worked for that. And I was able to very quickly make the changes that I needed to make, put things behind me, and the energy of it was just not weighing on me anymore. So it literally did feel like it was like I cut off that extra weight, right? So,
I mean, they say they can track your drug use from the party years, which would be somewhere probably around here,
right? Yeah. Please don't. But that is actually very true. I had a sister-in-law who had really long hair, and was going through a court thing at the time, and they were drug testing her, and they kept doing the hair tests, and she kept coming back as testing positive for what they were testing her for. This made it all the way to 60 minutes, in fact. And even though she hadn't touched it in years and years and years, you know, it kept coming back to the hair. So obviously there's something there, and it's just a strange substance, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. I mean, I use it pretty much for everything. I use it as a pet deterrent, or like a animal deterrent or rodent deterrents in my garden. So I staple my hair, you know, all the sheddings. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
With a mane like this, it's impossible not to have some runoff. So I literally, yeah, I use it to like as pest control in my garden, and then I also use it to help fertilize my plants. So I put it in the soil, and I guess the nitrogen in the hair literally helps. Everything in the hair really helps it grow. I mean, it's pretty amazing hair. It's such an awesome thing. Keeps us warm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Makes it look mysterious sometimes. You know. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
you can also make a statement. You know, by getting a little flock of seagull. You know. Great.
You can also use some of it as a mask, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Get your mask. You can just, yeah, I'm good. We're covered.
I do that. I can hold it up with my glasses, and then I don't need to, like, you know, put on one of the paper ones. But
Bobby pin it to your mustache. Yeah, perfect.
So prior to starting in bands, you had already been playing music?
Yeah, so music kind of ran in my family for like since I was, well, obviously from my history. So more predominantly on my father's side, my grandfather and his so my dad's father was a very famous tango singer named Alberto Rivera in Argentina. He died very, very young though. I think he died of tuberculosis. At that time, there was a lot of smoking in the clubs and a lot of drinking and partying. I mean, he was also a singer, a musician. So I'm sure he was right into the lifestyle, but he was very prominent. He actually became like one of the dominating voices on radio, like for his voice, because back then radio was like you know, back in the 40s and stuff like this in the 50s. That was pretty much like TV was just starting to come out. So he would sing for the like presidents, you know, mayors, all these types of political figures for very famous people. He died very young. My dad also followed in his footsteps as a tango singer, had a very beautiful voice. A lot of people paid him to, you know, play, but he wasn't quite as famous or popular as his father. And then my uncle also sang. My brother was an opera singer. He was able to sing opera from a very young age. I didn't really pursue it though. Had a huge range, like very belly, like deep opera, you know. And then my sister was also a pop singer, and she got very successful very young, and kind of got a rough deal in terms of, like, you know, having to struggle with a bit of mental illness and a pretty big like a poor deal, you know, from a very young age. No fault of her own. You know, it's caused by early like it was onset epilepsy, and then that onset her paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar. But the medication that they gave her didn't correctly dose her and give her the alternative medications to help, because one helps to, so you take epilepsy medication, then you have to take bipolar medication to help prevent onsetting that. So it's like one drug leads you to the other, and then before you know it, you got a mouthful of pills. And I guess she didn't really resonate with that. It was a tough go for her. So yeah, so I come from a whole family full of musicians, and I mean, I was kind of the runt of the litter, to tell you the truth. Like so many cases, you know, and these you know, types of epic tales of, you know, like you look at these types of movies where you see, you know, the one who wasn't necessarily supposed to make it. I was the June Carter of my family, so to speak, you know. So what ended up happening to me was my mom just kind of, you know, I was really, really inspired by guitar. I had some really amazing, talented musicians around my life. Like, I mean, these guys were monsters at like 14. Like, I mean, putting grown men to shame. And I was just like, man, these guys are good. And I just wanted to hang around music all the time. Like, can I learn? And they're like, yeah, that's good. You know, and then I was like, okay, that's great. So yeah, okay, teach me more, you know? And I was just had this very open mindset. So eventually I got somebody to scribble some tabs down on a paper for me. You know, like, how do you play this song? It was like Hotel California. Like, really? That's the song you want to learn? Like, go learn some Green Day to start, you know? And I was like, no, I got to learn this song, you know? And so I got it all written out, and it took me, I don't know, like, I'm like 4 years to learn it, you know? But it was like, maybe not that long, but it took me a long time. It was a very slow start for me. And I just started progressively like learning from my friends at the time around 14, when I got introduced to marijuana and rock and roll in the same year, pretty much like hand in hand, you know, in the back of a Econoline van with some of your buddies on your spare, you know? And I was like, wow, rock and roll is starting to make sense to me. You know, I guess I just need to smoke one to understand it. And then, yeah, and then so essentially I just kind of continued playing and just kept learning from these musicians and kept surrounding myself with them until I could kind of, start. I would just take my guitar everywhere. My mom, one day she came back from the flea market. I'll never forget, we were in Wasaga Beach for the weekend. She used to rent like a little cabin there, and me and my sister would go. And I don't think at this time my brother was even there. So we went to Wasaga Beach, the three of us, and yeah, she comes back from this flea market and she passes me this guitar. And I was like, what's this? And she's like, that's the guitar I bought for you. And I said, wow. And my mom's like super, super like frugal. So like, it was like a $10-15 guitar that she bought at the flea market about maybe 25 years ago, which you can imagine looked like a $10 or $15 guitar. I mean, I think it had a built-in whammy bar, but not like a traditional whammy bar. It was like the body itself, like around, like, the curve was like, had a hole in it, so you could squeeze the face of the guitar like an accordion and just get some whammy out of it. It was like a beaten up guitar. And I played that thing until it literally fell apart in my hands, and that kind of led me into starting to discover my evolution of music. And I just take that everywhere, and literally just anywhere that I was waiting or sitting around. Like, I take the bus a lot. I just take my guitar out and start playing. People would start throwing money in my thing like I was busking, and I'm like, no, and they're like, oh, you need a place to stay? You need some food? I'm like, no, I'm good. They're like, no, here's more money. They're like, come, you can eat. I'm like, man, I'm just trying to play guitar. They're like, yeah, that's nice. I mean, you're obviously homeless and you need a place to go. I'm like, don't let the guitar fool you. My mom bought it for me. So that was my start of music was very humbling for me. I didn't really start off with obviously with a great supportive cast of people helping me. Like, even my dad, who was really not in my life, when he saw me in the beginning of stages of music, he's like, man, you're doing it all wrong. It was like this kind of mentality. It wasn't like something that was like, yeah, you're doing great, keep going. It was something that if I didn't love it, like, really, I would have had every excuse to stop, because so many people are like, what are you doing, man? Play something else, learn something else, go do construction, maybe something where you don't sing or or you don't play, and I was like, yeah, okay, any other advice, and like with my guitar in hand, ready to learn. And now some of them call me for work. It's great.
Well, of course, they were very wrong in the grand scheme of things.
To show you what people know. Yeah,
exactly. Before I actually connected with you, I had seen you play. I was out with someone at the time and saw your band and was like, geez, that fellow there is talented. It's I'm a musician as well, obviously sing, and I can play some guitar, but can't do what you do. And so I always get really inspired when I see people be able to play and sing so fluently. And watching you, that was what blew me away. It was like you were singing and playing and everything was so great. And you were also performing to the crowd, which is, something I love. And that's part of why I don't hold a guitar when I'm on stage, is so that I can do that. But you managed to do it with the guitar, which was really kind of, impressive to me to the extent that you did it. So I became kind of interested in you right away. And we've obviously had mutual friends, so we're able to connect eventually. And yeah, man, it's been really kind of interesting. I've always wanted to ask you, because I don't really see your recordings anywhere. I know you as kind of like a live band that's all over the city all the time. Do you have recorded music that you guys have written?
Yeah, so you can find our our first attempt as the Marc Joseph Band. I mean, I had a couple albums with the old bands. I don't know if they exist online anywhere anymore. Those are kind of old tracks and stuff like that. Some really cool tunes there. They might be a little harder to find. Again, it's Eye of Morning, as in morning eyeballs, like the daytime eyeballs. You can try to find that somewhere. If you can find it, please send me some stuff, because I'd love to hear it. Sure. And then there's Forces, which is my old band. We used to have a MySpace page. Remember that? MySpace?
Oh, yeah. And this song.
So, I don't know if they have that stuff anymore, MySpace, but I mean, it's
the pages are still up. I have an old MySpace band as well called Damnation, and the MySpace for Damnation is still up. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I got to go and hunt for it. Maybe I can find it. Forces, that was a really cool band. We wrote some really, really bangers in that band. Actually, some that weren't so they were a little bit more marketable. And then with the Marc Joseph Band, you can find it on iTunes, and you can find it on YouTube Music. And the album title is Breathe. It's off the title track, which is called Breathe. There's some great songs on there. There's some experimental stuff on there, which is a little bit more poppy, kind of out of my typical realm, but we weren't really sure which direction we were going. We toured it in LA. We were kind of like, we didn't know what to expect and from who. So we kind of left it open, you know, like kind of like Sugar Ray, you know, his band, how he had like all these like really heavy tracks, and then all of a sudden they bust out Fly, and you're like, what the hell's this? You know? So we tried that kind of approach, just to kind of, okay, if we need to, you know, sell and make money off of an album to get heard, then, you know, we're no problem, we'll sell out. We need money, you know. So and then and by sell out, I just mean, you know, like recognition. But I mean, that pattern and that thought process has changed since the evolution of the band. That was about we released that album about 8 years ago, I want to say, and I think it was 2003. And so there's some really cool tunes on there that you can hear. But now I'm actually starting to write a little bit more of the personal stuff, the stuff that I've been carrying with me. You know, like all the stuff that your band's like, yeah, save that for your solo project. You know, you know, the good ones. And so, yeah, this now is starting to become like a compilation now. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is taking all these songs that I love, even from my old bands, from I Have Morning Forces and the Marc Joseph Band, which have already been recorded. I'm just going to decline the call here. And take some of those songs and then revisit them. So bands like the Rolling Stones, Bob Marley, these bands have done this pretty much, I think is one of the reasons for their like undeniable success, is that they took songs like, have you ever heard the original version of Lively Up Yourself by Bob Marley?
No.
Like a scratch track, and it's like, it's so dirty and raw, and it's like, man, this is like bare bones of this song, and you're like, that's Bob singing, man. And then you hear another version and it's more progressively, you know, it's now they're starting to introduce horns, and now the horn lines have their spot now, and now the vocals and the harmonies and the groove and the bass lines, and it's all been remastered 5, 6, 7, 8 different versions of the song before they landed the version of Lively Up Yourself that everybody's just like, you know, yes, you know, Bob, sing it. And the Rolling Stones did this. They would go and record their albums, write the song, record their albums, tour their albums at like the El Macambo, at the Palais Royale, at these like smaller venues, try them out in front of people, and they go, oh yeah, man, I didn't like that bridge, was too long, you know, that solo didn't work there, you know, whatever. I'm sounding more like the Beatles, but anyway. But the point is the point is that then they would go and record the song after it had been tried and trued and played in front of people, because the vibe changes. You know what I'm talking about, from the studio where you're watching paint dry to like sweating and like bleeding in front of people. It's like, man, there's a reason why I don't release a lot of stuff in the studio, because it's like masturbation. I feel like I'm the only one enjoying it. You know what I mean? I gotta give it to somebody else too. You know, like I prefer to have this experience, this exchange with the audience, to feel this vibration energy. And then all of a sudden the magic is being created and pulled out of the air. And then all of a sudden, now the song has, you know, gone through like 1,000 performances or 100 performances, and it evolved to all these beautiful moments of creativity that were inspiring you throughout this evolution. And now you go, wow, now we got the tune. Before we wrote the idea, now the song has been written, you know, and then you go and record it. So now I'm going to take all these tracks and all this stuff that I've done and put it into a presentation piece, you know, where it's like, here's my evolution of work and how it's progressed, you know, just like layer upon layer. And then through the years, now here's my final piece. And now I can say with pride that this is a song that I love, that I've tried it out. I know people will enjoy it. And I mean, another example is, listen to any album that you love, whether it's Alan Stone or Gloria Estefan or Toto, and you hear the album, you love it. Now you listen to the live version and it's like, what the F? Are you kidding? This song is amazing. We can't play the cover from the album. We got to play this version. This is the version. Why? Because it's evolved in front of people. This realness comes when you start playing that song outside of the studio, you know? I don't know.
Absolutely. There's also a lot to be said about just, you know, getting to that point. Like I think of a band like Bon Jovi, who, you know, what they do, tour for like 8 years before they got, you know, discovered. They actually got discovered at the El Macambo. Did you know that? Like here in Toronto. Yeah,
but I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
That's where they got discovered. Yeah, and like they were on the road for 8 years, you know, trying to do their thing and writing mediocre songs. And then, you know, by the time they got to that point, because they were so, you know, I should say they were touring on mediocre songs. But by the time they had toured them for, you know, that 8 years, now they've got all these things just locked down. And you know,
Yeah.
Bon Jovi is like
Wow, wow,
exactly
wow,
like
wow.
however you feel about their music live, they are incredible and always
Oh,
have been, right? Like they're right on top of that. And that's a big thing. Like I can remember, especially because like I grew up with, you know, maybe Nine Inch Nails isn't the right example, but around that time, there was a lot of bands who couldn't play their music live, or at least when they, you know, when they did play them live, they weren't good. Like I remember, as much as I love the band and they did get better over the years, but the Offspring, the first time I went to see the Offspring live, I'm like, does that singer realize that he's nowhere near in the right key? Like he's not.
Sometimes I wonder, do the drugs
Yeah,
have something to do with it? Because I've seen some pretty crazy shows.
maybe, but I mean, in that respect, with that particular band, what I realized is a couple years later when I went and saw them, they downtuned. So
Oh,
you,
I see.
so he didn't have to sing it up here. He could sing it in here and get away with it. So I was like, oh, okay. So, and I know what that's like kind of as a singer. We can do things with our voice that isn't necessarily comfortable to be doing night after night. Right. So,
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So
that's a
you
big one. And I mean, sometimes the songs you wrote during puberty are now when you surpass puberty, I mean, good luck, man. Can Robert Plant still sing Robert Plant? I mean, I don't know.
I threw all of those out because yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's one of those things, and Bon Jovi does it too, but he said it as well, and that's kind of why we do it, because yeah, we can push our voices to certain places and do it well, but you know, to do that every day and every night and have to sing another 20 songs is not an easy thing to do. Like
And then also all the radio interviews, all the like literally all the spots that they have to do, all the like the meet and greets, all this stuff. It becomes like you just never get a chance to relax. Like even for me, I'm nowhere even near. Like I mean, I'm a big deal. I got 50 likes on Facebook. I mean, I'm huge. That's a joke for all you who don't know what Facebook is. It's a joke. It's a platform that we used to use when we were dinosaurs. So anyway, the point is, you know, like I'm not even like super popular. I mean, we're well known in our community and in the Toronto area, definitely. But I mean, as far as you know, the practice of you know, like who knows us and how accredited we are, it's literally still so time consuming. If I didn't have an operations manager to run the business in the back end, I would probably not get any sleep because I'm answering emails all day for you know a fielding requests for the band. Then I got to you know submit you know quotes, ask for you know information. I got to submit you know song lists. I got to submit you know recordings of certain things, you know videos, all these kinds of things, on and on and on. Then I got to upkeep the backkeep of the business with the Google Drives and the Google Suites and all these types of things and everything that it keeps to keep the business running. Deal with repairs, deal with the musicians, set up the rehearsals. It can become like, oh my God, you know, all I wanted to do was become a singer in a band. And now I get to sing maybe 5% of that time, you know,
yeah.
and this is the 95% of everything else I do is for the love of the music to do it for 5% of the time. You know, you really got to deal with all the bullshit in order, you know, everything. That's why, you know, you're saying you're really impressed when you saw us play. If you knew how much work it actually took me to get to that point, it wouldn't be that impressive. I mean,
Well, I do know, and that's part of why it is impressive to me, because even just like I remember like the days of shows, they're stressful as fuck. Like that's not a lot of fun. You know what I mean? Like and then you have to perform in front of people on top of that. You're trying to like get your energy back to this place. You've got like 5 minutes before you're on stage, especially if you're, you know, setting up a show where you're headlining, because you have to deal with all the other bands and everything else that kind of goes on
all
between
the egos that go around with it. Oh
all
my
of
God.
that. Plus there's like, you know, greeting the fans, and there's dealing with the manager of the club, and there's all of this like talking that you're doing all day long, which is not what you want to be doing. And in the back of your head, you're like, save your voice, but you can't. So, and then you get in the club, especially the other bands start playing and it's loud. And so you're yelling at people now, right? And then at the end of
You
that,
save your voice, and then you become that guy with the scarf going, and everybody's like, what a prima donna dick. And you're like, man, I'm just trying to fucking sing.
exactly. So yeah, it's a lot more than just that, you know, fuck, it could be anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour on stage or 3 hours on stage, depending on what's going on, right? So yeah, it's an interesting thing. But
What we do to get on that stage, huh?
well, yeah, that's the thing, is getting on that stage. And I mean, I'm preaching the choir here, but there's nothing quite like it,
Oh
right?
man,
Like it's
it's
you've
home.
already Yeah, and you've already alluded to, like, you know, dabbling with drugs, and as have I. And yeah, there's very few drugs like that drug, and a lot of other drugs help that drug. So it's a slippery
Yeah, I
slope.
mean, for sure. But a lot of times what I found with the drug is like sometimes when you mix drugs, you get like a different high. You know what I mean? And so this was kind of like what our staple was, is like try to keep the music as clean as possible. So when we step on stage, first of all, that's our altar. That's like a sacred place. So whatever our day is going through, whatever, we have to usually leave it off the stage. It's hard sometimes. It's really hard. Like, I mean, I'd be lying to say if, I could do that 95% of the times, like maybe it's only 80% of the times that I'm able to step on the stage and truly leave everything behind. It's gotten progressively more, like now it's closer to probably that 95% of the time. But when you're playing 200 shows a year, man, you're dealing with some, it's the owner who hasn't paid you or this or that, or you're dealing with the guys who aren't showing up, or with fans who are belligerent and falling into your stuff, or, having like a 3 or 4 night in a row and just feeling tired, or you have an argument with your girlfriend and then you get to the show and you're just feeling defeated. It's hard not to bring it on that stage. So it becomes a very conscious thing to say, like, when I get up on that stage, doesn't matter what's happening in my life, doesn't matter what's happening with anybody. This is a sacred place. We need to protect it as such. When we get on the stage, we clear the stage of any of, like, so many times I walk to a venue and you see the bands, they leave all their beer cans, all this stuff. No respect for the altar, and I'm saying that's, for me, this is my thing. I'm working on these stages. This is where we get to do what we love to do, where we get to go and feel what we love to feel, chasing that dragon. So let's make it a nice, beautiful, clean stage so that we can have this beautiful practice. The only things we leave on that stage are sweat and blood. You know what I mean? And and then when you're getting off, exactly that, you're taking everything off the stage with you, and leaving it as sacred and pristine, even more than you found it, because it's such a beautiful place. So it's literally become a place of refuge for me, where so many people can't imagine stepping out and to a stage and being in front of people. When I step there and I put on my guitar, I go, oh, okay, now it's just me, the guitar, and my band. Doesn't, like, I mean, people are out there, but it starts with me and the band and this stage. And then it works its way out. If people are getting it, great. Then we can invite them to join the experience. If not, we're just going to go and get it ourselves. I mean, if there's 4 people in the audience or 100,000 people, which it's been the case, or it's not, I'm bragging. Actually, 4 people one night, it was actually like 1 or 2. But we've been on stages like up to 100,000. Played with Walk Off the Earth and Canada Day Festival in Jacuzzi Park, over 100,000 in attendance. Same, with Colorado and stuff like this. And those were crazy experiences. But for me, being on the stage is where I go to, like, come back to myself. And more, especially these days, with everything being so negative, low vibe, and a lot of this discrimination happening at venues, and people being muzzled with, masks and stuff like this, and constantly being badgered, like, hey, put on your mask or this and that, like, and you're constantly like in the flow of, being a musician and talking to people, and, and you're not being able to go to tables and stuff like this. It really took a lot of that beautiful experience away from it for me. So now going on those stages feels like I'm just going there to sing. It's not to connect to people anymore. So I kind of took a little bit of a back step from bars right now and just said, listen, until this stuff blows over, I really don't want to have anything to do with playing in these types of energetic environments, because I want to play in a place where we can all get together collectively, even if it's united polarity, that's fine. But we can all get together and all enjoy it in a very healthy way, without feeling like, we're kids on recess, being told we can't run and play, and this is kind of, everything that I don't like about the music scene. I'm going there on that stage to let it all out. So if a little sweat bubble flies off the stage and hits somebody in the face, I'm going to say you're in the splash zone, and that's a beautiful place to be, not like you have to worry about your safety and your health and all this kind of stuff. So in that sense, I kind of remove myself from that. We're doing mostly private events, corporate gigs, weddings, and all that kind of stuff, the paying stuff right now, and kind of just leaving the bars right now until they can recoup, and until things kind of soften up. They're saying January, but who knows? January, February, right? So.
Yeah, that's like, I haven't been, just before, and on this podcast, I try to avoid certain words. So I call what's going around the joy. You can get the joy, you can get the joy, spread the joy. One solution is a lollipop.
Yeah.
They give you a lollipop, and then there's people who remain sugar-free. So obviously we have this thing in bars right now where if you're sugar free, you're not allowed into them,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of people, especially depending on what type of music you're talking about. There's a lot of people who are into music who are kind of on the sugar free side, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of people are suffering, and then you've also got a lot of, say, musicians who aren't necessarily into even just the segregation of it to begin, whether they're on one side or the other, right? So I could really understand that. And then, of course, when the Joy All first hit, you know, all of my musician friends, which is a lot of my friends, were just like, the fuck do I do with my life, right? Like, and I get it. Like it put everything, like, for a musician, especially an active musician, like, that is your life. That is what you do. That is who you are, and there is nothing else in your scope. There's just nothing. So to have literally everything about your life just put on hold, you know, it was true for many people in many different walks of life, but entertainers, people on a gig-based income, they were the ones who really, like, there's literally nothing I can fucking do about this, right? Like, I can't, you can barely even get, like, you know, government assistance at that point because you've been an entrepreneur this whole time. And, you know, a lot of it is kind of handled, but that's a whole other topic. But I did notice, and I wanted to ask you, because I remember when you were advertising for it, I thought of the concept, and I know some comedians had done it too, but the concept of, like, playing music at a drive-in.
Yeah, exactly.
that was like, to me, my heart hurt for you.
Oh, like yeah, because of the fact that people, like, they're all stuck in their cars, they can't get out and dance.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question. This is the question that I battle with in my head. So I feel exactly the same for you, and this is kind of why, like, it was like one compromise after another. How bad you need to play music that you compromise the very essence of what music is supposed to be about: collectivity, bringing people together, uniting people, not segregating, discriminating, all this other stuff. So how do you do this? So in the beginning stages, I thought any way possible, as long as I can sing and provide music, I'm providing this joy for people. This became the issue. It's like that dum dum ka ta ta kum ka the most sampled drum beat in the world. That drummer never made a penny. Now let me ask you something: is it worse for the world to be robbed of that drum beat and for that drummer to make all the money, or for the drummer not to make a cent and the world to have that drum beat?
I would say the world have that one.
Yeah. What do you do? Because you're robbing the people in the world this opportunity for this beautiful healing rhythm that they would otherwise not get if this guy was so selfish. So sometimes it takes sacrificing the one for the masses, and this is where music becomes this penance almost, because it's not really like, not everybody hits that big time where they can be this huge famous musician and make all this money. And even if they do, at what cost do they do it? I mean, we look at people like David Bowie, Prince, they got their names, their lives taken away from them because they simply owed their lives to playing music, to all these record labels, barely made anything by the time they got out of it, you know, really got screwed over by the business. But, you know, you look at them and they're the moguls, they're the you know, the leaders of our industry. And what's happened to them? You know, they've been put through the ringer. So music becomes one of these things where it's your burden as a musician to share that music with everybody else so that we can alleviate their burdens, you know, and this is the blessing. The blessing comes through that act of service. Music isn't something where you can now define it as this thing where you make music, people pay you for it, and that's it. It's like you make music to help people heal. And healing is the fucking ugliest thing out there. And when you're playing your music and watching these people heal, it can be very, very ugly for you too, because you're there shamaning these people through their lives experiences, through their shitty weeks, through their shitty relationships, through their shitty life experiences, through their shitty choices that they make in life. And the only solace that they get, you know, is your band or your music or that song that they get to hear. And who has to pick up the rest of the energy that they're emitting, or it comes on a lot to these musicians, and then we write sad songs about it, or amazing songs about it, and make nothing, and we share it. And why do we do it? Because it's a vicious cycle, and this is the role of musicians as healers in the world. Because music, let's face it, is the only thing that everybody can agree on. That first of all, that we all like music. I don't think I've ever met anybody who doesn't like music. And if I did, honestly, like, man, I feel really sorry for you. That's like, I mean, I know even people who can't hear that love to feel music, you know? I think it's something that everybody loves. Good. So when you have this type of thing that everybody agrees on, you know, what are we doing with it? What's our power? You know, I took a big step back from bars and said, listen, I'm not going to play anywhere that's discriminating. I don't care if you're part of the sugar-free movement or part of the lollipop movement. I really don't care. For me, I'm not going to regress back to the 50s, because then I'm saying, okay, it's not okay for one person to do something, but it's okay for another person to do it. Whether you're white, black, gay, straight, freaking, you know, happy or sad, lollipopped or no lollipopped, joy is for everybody. It's not something that you can pick and choose. And when I play my music, I'm going to play for every single soul that will hear me, including the animals and the birds and the bees and as many people. It's for children, it's for adults, it's for whatever we can do. You know, you want to pay me privately and hire me just for you and your friends, that's great. But anything that I can do publicly will be for everybody. And that's not because I'm not lollipop, and that's not because I am lollipop. That's because I'm a human being. You know what I mean?
Well
and this is something that we need to understand. Segregation is not the answer. I firmly believe that we as individuals should be completely different. We should all be different and all have our own opinions. This is what makes the world so amazing. If everybody was like me, I'd probably be sick of myself by now. You know what I mean? It's great that we have all this variety. So let's nurture it by saying, let's be unitedly, like it's this united polarity. You know, we're different, but we're still together. We're all in this together, aren't we? I mean, everybody keeps saying that, but sometimes it doesn't seem that way.
We should be. And to be honest, I thank you for saying all that, because that's a big part of why I do this is, you know, there's always a middle ground. Even if you got two people that disagree, my outlook on it is I'm not going to let this world turn me against my brothers and sisters.
Exactly.
Like, I'm just not. I don't care what you put in front of me. I don't care what the media wants to say. I don't care, you know, what the cost is, even if it is my own life, to be honest. This is a hill I will die on. I'm not going to let anyone do that to me. So
beautiful, brother.
I feel exactly what you're saying. And that's part of why, you know, I'm kind of not participating with this thing as well, is because I'm not going to play your pick a side game. I'm just not. Like,
exactly.
Like I said, everyone should
divide
be
and
able
conquer,
to,
my friend. Divide and conquer.
Exactly.
The oldest trick in the book, man. I'm a big history buff. I love history. I'm taking you for a walk. We're going on a journey to get more coffee.
Excellent. So with that segue, actually, one thing I've also noticed you got into is sound healing. So
yes.
There's a lot of, yes, people don't really think about it this way, but we always hear about like ecosystems and how if you take an animal out of the ecosystem, you know, that ecosystem will start to fail. That's got a lot more to do with frequency than it does, you know, the prey predator food chain game. A lot of what that has to do with their song, their sound is a part of that ecosystem. It's a part of what keeps the environment balanced. And what that should tell us as humans is that, you know, cymatics, which is the response that we feel when we hear sound, has an effect on us. And you can just, you know, the basic cymatic tests are done on water. And so people are like, oh, great, it moves water. Okay, but how much of your body is water?
Yeah, like 70 to 90%.
Exactly. So therefore, it's having the same effect on us. We also know how they can manipulate brain waves when they're doing tests on in neuroscience with sound and with frequency. So extrapolate that into something like listening to music, or using something like crystal bowls and various type of steel drums, or just percussion in general. There's a lot of physiological effect in these things, and that can be used in the form of healing. And I'm sure that's seems to be something that you've shifted some of your focus at least over to.
Well, this is what you said, like when this whole joy came about. I love that, by the way. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm going to take that from you. Thank you. Put that in my bag.
Please do. I'm hoping to make a meme one day.
So yeah, when this whole joy started, this was, I mean, I lost a lot. I lost my relationship of 8 to 9 years failed. I lost a house in the process. I lost my business partners, which were my previous business partners for the band. I lost really close relationships, like a good friend of mine for 26 years, you know, just decided, you know, that's enough. And I mean, I think his girlfriend decided, but anyway. But you know how that goes, that old story. But anyway,
Yeah.
and so all these things just kind of fell apart on me. I mean, it cost me like, I mean, I lost everything. I lost almost over $1 million in just losses from business, from buyouts, from that, and then all my relationships as well. And it's very easy in these moments to think, my life is done, it's over. But history has proven to me, in retrospect, I've learned that every time this carpet has been pulled out from underneath me, it's only to present a new floor and a new surface area to work with. But in order to have something new, you have to replace the old, you know, like, so we have to get rid of what's not working, that doesn't serve us, either voluntarily or involuntarily. And then what are you going to do with it now, with all this empty space? What are you filling this empty space up with? You know, so for me, I filled it up with this practice, this sound healing practice. And my response to losing over $1 million was, all right, well, the universe wants to take everything that I have, my relationships, this and that, or, you know, at the time I was still like, take, you know, instead of like create space for me and help me evolve. And I was like, yeah, I wants to do this to me because I'm still human and I'm obviously a musician, and, you know, this is how I react, you know, like, oh yeah. So, what I did was I just started giving sound baths and sound healings for free. Okay. This was my, like, by donation. You can just come, anybody, anytime, whenever. Well, I mean, you book an appointment and then we do it. But I wasn't charging anything. This was my response. Instead of grabbing on, I further leaned into letting go, you know? And at this point, I already started my evolution practice of sound healing, because through music, after many, many years of sucking, then I started sucking less and less and less. And then the evolution of suck slowly started dropping off, and having a good sound guy to turn down the suck knob and turn up the talent knob. You know what I'm talking about? The two knobs, the talent and the suck. You know, for you non-musicians out there, you don't have any idea what I'm talking about. It's a very technical concept. So yeah, so I mean, you know, the slow evolution to becoming better at my craft and more in line with my craft also started pushing me to understanding frequencies, understanding where the space of a frequency can rest in a certain track, and how, you know, the lower vibrations have longer dips and swoops, you know, where the higher frequency vibrations are a little bit, you know, a little bit shorter distance and a little, you know, shorter in span. So the idea is, this kind of led me into understanding and going down the rabbit hole of frequencies. One of the first of which was 432. So standard tuning is 440 is standard tuning, which all musicians are playing right now. Whether the Nazis enslaved us into standardizing the 440 or not, I don't know. You have to ask Alan Cross. You know, he seems to think that there could be something there. I mean, they were Nazis. They were doing a lot of mind control stuff. And I'm not going to say that frequency vibration can't control that, because it absolutely can. They have militarized weapons that can literally incapacitate an entire room with subsonic waves through walls that are inaudible. You make you lose your lunch, do the funky chicken, you know, and you're on the floor. Yeah.
And the infamous brown note. Don't forget about the brown note.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, so, I mean, literally, they have weapons that can incapacitate you with subsonic frequencies. So now, just like anything, if there's darkness, there must be a light side of it that creates that shadow of that darkness. So if they can weaponize sound, they can also use it to heal. You know, I mean, Buddhists have been doing this for thousands of years. And not only that, but if you think about it, like, music has been essentially like part of everybody's culture. I mean, from, you know, the slaves of America into, you know, the songs of Egypt, where they all blew the horns, you know, and took down the walls of Babylon. You know, music has always been there to kind of, provide this je ne sais quoi, but this healing experience, or this evolution for humans, you know, this energy, frequency, and vibration mentality. Nikola Tesla, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, understand these three things: energy, frequency, and vibration. What does that sound like? That sounds like a good night with a good band. You know what I mean? So I started understanding about this 440 and how everything was in this standard tuning of 440, and then what the benefits of 432 are. Now, 432 is essentially the Earth's healing vibrational frequency, or our root chakra, which is the first of our chakras, vibration frequency, which is associated with the color red, or the note C. But the note C in 440 is a little bit higher than the note in 432, which would be a little lower than that note. So the idea is, the 440, if you look at the cymatics of it, you'll see the frequency is very, like, it kind of looks like a blob. if you expose 440 to a frequency with cymatic practice versus 432, which looks like a very symmetrical, very almost like a snowflake. So you're starting to see the effects of what it can do to simply things like water. Now, bringing back to your point, we're all made of water. Now, if I can expose you to this 432 frequency, then essentially what I'm doing is making all the water in your body, instead of looking like this, look like this, and more symmetrical, and it looks, so much more beautiful. You can look at these kinds of tests where Dr. Yakamoto, who is a Japanese scientist, did this study of people's tears. And when you're crying tears of happiness, they look very symmetrical, beautiful, like snowflake like. When tears of anger, they look very abstract, like somebody just went with a bunch of paint. So you can understand that everything reacts to vibrational frequencies. If you talk nicely to a plant, it will grow. If you love and nurture it, will grow. If you talk poorly to a plant and you're mean to the plant will literally die. This has been proven. If you've ever watched those IKEA commercials for, the non-spiritual person or the scientific person about, these types of things, you can understand that if you sing to a plant, the plant will grow bigger, bear you more fruit. And, you sing in key, probably even more. If you sing out of key, and tease it, they used to have this, we even, we tease the dogs, we starve them. We even sang out of key, mommy, mama, momo, mommy, and the Simpsons, they know everything. This idea of everything that's in harmony and melodic frequency will continue to thrive and grow. Anything that's out of frequency, everything that's out of alignment will continue to start dissipating. So it led me down this journey to say, okay, well, I need to know more about 432. Then I started listening to meditative tracks in 432. Then I started finding out like 528, which helps solar plexus and heart frequencies opening. And I started understanding this. So what I did was I started looking into sound baths, and they were crazy expensive to try to find them. And usually you're sitting in a room with 100 people, and the guys at the other end of the room, and maybe you can hear like, from the guy beside you, is like, wow, that was a pretty good sound bath. And you're paying like $80 for the experience, and I was like, I need this every day in my life, to tune myself back out of this 440 into this 432, this healing frequency. And I said, I need this. So I just couldn't resonate with trying to go and get these courses once a week. And then I just said, okay, I'm going to buy these bowls, and I found this set of bowls and I purchased them and literally started my practice. I just started welcoming people to come in by donation and laying down, and people were having some transformative things happen to them. Like, between me, you, and the fence post, my girlfriend now, who's pregnant, we're having a baby in January. We're actually, when she first came here, she came with a mutual friend, and she couldn't have her monthly cycle for 2 years. She had some trauma abroad, and she couldn't have her period. And literally the day after, she told me months later, because she didn't want to empower or make me think that I was doing anything. Girlfriends. She's not gonna give me the one up on her. You know what I mean? She's gonna hold that and be like, yeah, honey, I did it myself. She's such a sweetheart, and I'm just teasing. But the evolution of our relationship didn't allow me to find out that information until much later, until after we started dating, which was a little bit of a dance, because I really don't like to get involved with people that I'm working with and practicing with, because then it can cross lines and vulnerability and all this stuff. It gets really messy. So I made it very clear that it wasn't going to happen. And for several weeks, we kind of just left it at that. And then the universe just kept pushing us into it. And I had to eventually bow my principles down in order to understand that the universe was at play here. And now we're having a baby. So these things were literally transforming people's lives. I watched so many people have these amazing, amazing transformative experiences simply by frequency exposure. And what does that look like? Well, it looks very simply like this. It's a bunch of colorful bowls in a room that allow me to kind of just, jump in and make a little bit of noise. I don't know if this will translate, but you can kind of get an understanding. Sounds great, right? Crystal quartz. Yeah. And then you also have gong work. Thank you so much, Alter. So that's a little like preview of what happens. And then we also have certain types of, these are Nepalese bowls. So these bowls here are all brass. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but I don't have my gong, my mallet. And these are resonant bowls, which we actually place on the body. And so those actively work with the vibration of itself instead of just the tone of the note to help essentially shift any energy that's stuck. And with the 7 chakras, what we do, like just like a guitar, a 7-string guitar, because we're going to play some like Sepultura stuff, right? Yeah. Low B string. Yeah, that's right. So the 7 chakras would be just like your 7 energetic points in your body, which start from your crown, your root, to your sacral, to your solar plexus, to your heart, throat, third eye, and then crown. So when you get through all these different things, these different chakras, and we go through each one of them with the respective frequencies, it's kind of like tuning your guitar. So we go and we play our guitar during our life, and we're making all these great tunes, but every now and then, we bang it around, we do all this stuff, and now the guitar needs to be tuned up again. So this is what we do. Just like your car gets a tune up, we tune you up here too.
We tune you up here too.
Yeah, exactly. Tony tune-ups.
No, it's beautiful. Like that's a big practice of my own life is the type of thing that you're talking about. Whenever I jam on my own guitar, it's always tuned to 432, like always.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It makes it so hard for musicians because I'm in a band. Now you're going to go and play with your horn section and your string section. And hey, guys, I need it in 432. And they're going to look at you like, whatever, asshole, concerts here or what?
Yeah.
Like...
One of my former bandmates, when he did this band, I believe they did their first full album in 432. They turned
man. That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually going to ask you, but I figured it's probably difficult, especially if you're playing with other musicians, and it's different if it's just your band. Be like, okay, everybody's into this, but if you're going to go out and jam with people, it doesn't quite work. I remember actually one time a friend bringing guitar over to a house that we both pick up to play. We both play E, and it's like, wait a second, those are way off. Why are they way off? And then it's, oh yeah, I have to tune to 440. Fuck.
Yeah. And then you're like, I'll tell you why it's off, because you're sucking my will to live with that E, bro. Like, get out of here with that E. But then people look at you like you're an asshole if you're at 432. It's like, look at this guy, man. Not only does he wear a scarf and doesn't want to talk before shows, but now he's tuning to 432. Like, I can't deal with this guy's a prima donna.
Exactly. But I mean, if you go back to the Beethovens and the Mozarts, and you go back to the day where all this, I mean, we don't have a lot of recording of it, but that's how they were tuning their instruments. Like, even pianos,
and not just in 432. A lot of times it was based on their frequency of their level of whatever they wanted. They'd like hit that you'd have the conductor, man, we're playing it here today. This is where I'm feeling it today. It was a feel thing, man. And this was why it was so much back and forth, and why there was so much issues with musicians, because they'd all come ready to hit that E chord. I mean, man, that's not an E. What are you playing in, And then you'd have a whole band like this. So it was constantly teetering back and forth. And this inability to standardize it, kind of created this opportunity for, obviously, the devil at play, to kind of take something like this Shakti, this creative life force of saying, hey, man, where's your E? Give me your E. Okay, I'll just tune to that. You know what I mean? Instead of hitting the tuner and sticking to the standard, it took away that playfulness. Like, I remember when I was playing with my band, man, I couldn't freaking afford a tuner in the beginning. I was just playing me and a drummer. It was like, bow, bow. That sounds about right. Let's go. You know what I mean? And most times I would tune lower than actual standard tuning naturally, just by feel. It was not. And then people would, I had a classical guitar, no tuning. It was like, with the whammy bar on the side. The point is there was nobody else to make music with, so I tuned to my frequency, the frequency I felt comfortable with. This is the problem now. We've taken that away by standardizing it, I think it's a problem. Maybe it's because I'm a singer and not a musician, and I don't have to deal with the pain in the ass of tuning to 432.
True. And that there is an adjustment, though. Like, I remember when I first decided to do it, you do have to train yourself to sing that way too, like, especially if it's something you were familiar with. Like, it is almost like a key change. It was really quite interesting. And it's funny that you mentioned naturally tuning lower. I noticed that I would always do that too, kind of by ear, and 432 is lower. Like, it is it does have more of that frequency to it, right? It doesn't have, and I mean, there's a lot of different places you could go to look at this, but like, the reason why music is so attached to memory has to do with these frequencies as well, is because, water stores memory, as science is now letting us know. They're starting to build hard drives out of water and crystal and whatnot. And that's what our bodies are also made out of. which means that our cells are storing energy, and frequency being a sort of energy. That's why we have this connection to like a time and place in a song, that it just kind of never leaves you. But also in respect to what I'm talking about, for us as singers, we rely on training our muscle memory. Right, we don't have frets to play, so you train muscle memory. So if you suddenly change the tuning of the song on the singer, they're going to be way off. We had this awesome event one time where our drummer just laid into me and the other singer in the band at this party we had played in for being so off key on this song. But like our songs would fluctuate between tunings, and they weren't tuning between songs. We were just trying to on the fly make the adjustments. But you can't hear anything. So you're 100% relying on muscle memory, which is trained to sing it in a different key. So, it's kind of the chicken before the egg. Are we off key or are you?
Yeah, and I mean, you got to understand, we're like a wooded instrument, like a woodwind. And the vibration of our instrument is very important. The vibration of what's in our head, what's in all this, like what's coming out of our resonance. So when you're singing in a quiet room with just a single guitar, man, you sound like a nightingale sometimes. When you get up on stage and you got a drummer hitting you with one vibrational frequency, with his drums tuned, however, you got the bass slapping you this way, and you got a guitar hitting you this way, and you got people yelling at you in front, you're full with all this vibrational frequency. And what ends up happening, the instrument itself starts to take on that vibrational frequency. You know what I'm saying? So now it's being hit by all these things. Think about playing like a didgeridoo or playing a guitar, and it's getting hit, and then all of a sudden you get this swell, whoa, this runaway thing that happens because there's so much vibration and frequency running around that it gets stuck in this hollowed, empty vibrational instrument, not this heavy wooded guitar or this like drum set that's just kicking with cymbals and. Check out this new Zildjian crash I got. It's like rah rah rah. And it's like, man, that's all I can hear is what cowbell. All I hear is, it's like there's not much you can do. So there is, I understand that like that beast of trying to like play. Don't even get me started with my rock bands. I mean, sometimes you'd be lucky to get a freaking wedge, as a monitor in some of these venues, and you're singing like this the entire show, like ah, rah, rah, rah. Like, I mean, you're only going to hear the notes. You're not going to have any vibrational frequency resonance. You're not going to have any of this stuff because you can't hear any. It's like you got a gate on it. It's like every time you sing, and all you can hear is the drums blasting through your mic and the guitar ripping through your mic, and then a loud ringing in your ear, and now go sing. Like, okay, great.
So just you mentioned earlier about deaf people in music. This chair that I'm sitting in right now was gifted to me. I have a tendency to sit on my front porch and sing. Like I'll put headphones in and I'll just sing. So of course I live in Toronto, like kind of downtown-ish Toronto. So of course there's people passing by all the time. I'm just putting on a show. I've had people stop, but there's a guy who lives down the street from me who stopped one day, and he informed me that he is deaf. He can barely hear, but he would be able to hear me for like a kilometer in every direction for whatever reason. He's like, whatever frequency you're singing at, it's like making my ears work, right? And he was just blown away by that. He's like, I've never really experienced anything like that. So he invited me over to his house, and I sat and I sang for him for a few hours, and he was just like, yeah, this is, thank you. Like, I've never had that. And he gave me a chair as a present.
That's beautiful,
the chair that I would sit out there on was a very uncomfortable chair. And so that was, he kept offering to pay me. I wouldn't take his money. And so he just dropped off the chair one day. But music, it's got all of these healing qualities to it that transcend us as musicians as well. I think, much like a psychologist, like we get into psychiatry or psychology because we need a psychologist, musicians, we all seem to kind of get into this because we do need that healing. I always call it kind of like the superhero origin story to a musician. So, it's always really beautiful for me to hear that story from other musicians and see kind of what they went through to get to that point, and then hear the stories of how it moves on to everybody else, my favorite thing, there's two things. Teaching other people how to sing has always been a big thing for me. Like when a younger guy comes to me, he's like, man, like I really love what you do. Can you show me how you do that type of screaming, or how do you hold notes like that, and that type of thing. Being able to pass that on has been huge, because when I was a kid, I didn't have anyone, and I had to learn all that stuff on my own, right? So part of that, but the bigger part is through sharing art. And it doesn't have to be music, it can be any art. There is a a group of people who will, relate to what you're doing, and it will help. They'll have a comparable experience that it also helps them, transition through, heal through. And I find that to be the most beautiful part of, creating anything, to be honest.
I mean, we're just the storytellers, man, of our ages. And I mean, that's how they used to tell stories with through songs, these verses that they would sing about kings and queens and about, greats, historical figures of our time. A lot of it wasn't passed around written works and these types of things. It was passed around in song, in vocally expressed stuff. We are literally the historical keepers of the world, songwriters. We are literally writing the music that relates to the times. And so we are like essentially like the Akashic record holders, and to be a musician, I mean, it's kind of like I said, it's that double-edged sword, it's the guy who writes the best drum beat to heal the world and makes nothing for it. It's kind of like the same thing that you're describing, changing one person's life. And you don't receive money for it. I mean, maybe you get a comfy place to sit now, but this idea that you're changing somebody's life for a chair, it's like
Yeah.
for a place to sit and do it for somebody else, and this type of thing is it's literally it's a practice in humility, being a musician, to think that I could have any success without the people who are watching the music would be also something that would be very out of alignment, with what's actually happening. The ability to provide such a beautiful blessing for people like music and to sing a story that will maybe change people's lives. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I sat with a guitar and people would just go, how did you know, or how, or why, or like, trying to understand how this could affect them so much. And I don't know what they're going through, but I'm providing the perfect opportunity for them to go through it with this music, and the space to do so, and so that they can feel related. I remember music for me when I was going through a really low point, and this was just at the beginning of my first band. I would take my guitar everywhere and just write, and I was writing the best songs, dude. And it was out of the most amount of pain. Like, I mean, still to this day, they're the better songs. I didn't even know how to play the guitar back then, but these songs now I play them and I'm like, wow, people are like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, I wrote these places from such a place of hurt, and I didn't know how to tell my story to people. I didn't know how to say, I'm hurting, I'm suffering, my life is not great, like, how come everything's not easy? Why is this happening to me? So I went, brum, da-da-dum, here's my song. And then people would go, wow, that's beautiful. It wasn't a conversation anymore. It wasn't me trying to get an answer from somebody. It wasn't me trying to justify it. This is what I have to say. Here you go. And it's in a 3-minute version or a 2.5-minute version, and boom. And people go, what the fuck? It's when words failed us, when explaining things fails us, enter the music. It's like hearing that ballad during a sappy movie, and that ballad is just like literally is really what's making you cry because nothing's even happened yet. You know what I mean? Music can evoke such immense power and such immense emotion that this is why you hear a lot of dank ass shit, fuck yeah, on the radio, because to keep them, it's not songs about revolution. It's not like, hey man, you better stop. What's that sound? Everybody look, what's going down? It's like, the man with a gun over there telling me I gotta beware, and that gun could look like a lollipop or something else. But these songs are now forgotten or pushed aside because they're too powerful. They're not really forgotten, but this kind of happens to that kind of music now. Now there's no room for that kind of stuff on the radio. They need it flash and bang, in a pot, in a pan, popcorn music, bubblegum type of thing, in and out of the digestion system, not too much thought. And actually, the more we can kind of focus on what sells, sex, drugs, money, rock and roll, the more we can keep the masses placated, then the more power we have. And how do we have power? Through music, 100% through music. I do not think that anybody is pumping, I don't think that the majority of radio stations are pumping music that the masses want to hear. I think that the majority of radio stations are pumping music that is being controlled by, I don't know, like by this inability to want to relinquish power from those with power, and to relinquish. I mean, you look at Bob Dylan, man. I mean, that motherfucker changed a lot of things for people, and he pissed a lot of people off doing it too. A lot of people didn't like what Bob Dylan had to say. But I mean, that guy was a revolutionary. he could barely sing, you know what I mean? But man, could he tell a story when he picked up that guitar and he opened his mouth that people like on top were going, man, this is a little too much. You know, I mean, this is a little too much. We might have to off this, you know, this guy, because, you know, the power becomes so great when you're able to literally move masses with simply, you know, your words and your music.
Beautiful and very well said. And yeah, I think in terms of, you know, our conversation, that's a great place to kind of leave it. But I wanted to know, would you like to play a song?
Sure. I can do one or two for you. Yeah. Want to hear it? You can let me know how it comes across. If it sounds okay, we'll start with a little sound check and see how that feels.
Yeah, let's do it. I've got to run out of the room for just 1 minute.
Yeah,
and
I'll do the same. Perfect.
I can edit this little breakout for the people at home.
Perfect. Well, then in this case, I'm just going to do a sexy dance.
Cool.
You don't have to edit that part out. I'm sure people will want to see that.
No, I'm leaving that in. Edit happens now. I'll be right back.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. So this song I wrote pretty much in, so after my last relationship that ended, the music started flowing again for me. So this song was a song that I just wrote once I found out that my current girlfriend, who I'm very much in love with, I found out that she was pregnant. And then this song, which I literally am not talented enough to write, let alone play, just kind of came through, and then I just tried my best to do it justice. So it's called Aquarius, which is the age of or the period in which the baby was conceived, and when the baby's expected is to be born in the age of Aquarius. Sorry, not the age of Aquarius, but in the sign of Aquarius. It was conceived in the age of Aquarius. So, there you go. Sound a little better?
Well, despite the fact that Zoom is not cooperating with us, that's a beautiful piece of music. So I'm definitely going to leave that last track of it in.
Okay, cool, man. I mean, however it translates, it translates. I mean, it's not for me to understand, just for me to accept, and allow.
Exactly. I was vibing. I'm sure other people will. Some people will be annoyed. Whatever, they'll get over it.
Yeah. If they're annoyed, you can come see me in person at a venue.
There you go. There you go.
I mean,
it's a teaser, it's like the teaser trailer. That's kind of what it sounds like. If like that sounded pretty fucking beautiful, just imagine what it sounds like for real people.
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd be lying to say if I can take any credit for that song. I don't know where it came from, and it came all of a sudden, and then I just like wrote that piece, and then my girlfriend's like, whose is that? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't figure that out. Still, I'm still learning how to play it. So I mean, it just kind of came, man. I really I can't even tell you that if I was to say that I wrote that song, I would be just as full of shit as Trudeau. There's one for the pigs, for the liberals.
And on that note,
I didn't need to make it political. I love everyone equally.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Marc. This has been a blast. I look forward to getting the opportunity to speak to you again one day, and hopefully, weather permitting and nonsense in the world permitting, we can sit down and have a cup of coffee together one day.
Well, you know what? I'd love to get together and do this definitely in person. Maybe we can jam out a bit. A couple of singers getting together. I don't know who we're going to get to play the music, but we'll figure it out. But I was saying, maybe, we can get together and just so that so right now we're currently still accepting bookings for private events for the Marc Joseph Band, which is pretty much like top 40 stuff. And like you can hear anything from the 50s to current. And if you're getting married and all that kind of stuff, you can book us through the Marc Joseph Band, Marc with a C. You can find us on Instagram, or just go to info@mjbe.ca. And you can send me an email there. And that's for Marc Joseph Band Entertainment is the abbreviation there. And then if you ever do want to come by, or anybody else that's watching out there wants to come by for some healing, like for some of the crystal sound bowl healings, every new moon, which means it's the opposite of the full moon, when the night is the darkest and you can't see the moon, we work by donation through my home in Pickering, which I can easily let you know where it is once you reach out to me. So every new moon, we have people come to the house, and everybody just lays, bring your yoga mat, your blanket, your pillow, and it's by donation. So you can feel free to leave whatever you like. If you need a suggested donation, typically we ask for about $30. We're also raising some money and asking for women to bring any tampons or pads for other women who are who are period poor is what they're calling it. And so we fund this place called the Period Box. So you can donate like a box of tampons or a box of pads to help another woman who may not have access to that kind of stuff. So these are all ways you can come in, and it's all pretty much just a beautiful community just sitting here listening to the sound bowl frequencies. So we tune everybody up. And then I also play a couple of the songs that that we were trying to get through here today. So you can hear them in a bit of a better version. It's, everybody's welcome to this home. It's a place where everybody's safe, regardless of what's happening out there in the world. And obviously you're most welcome. It's only 25 minutes from the GO station at Union to get to the GO station in Pickering. So I'm happy to come and pick you guys up if you need a ride. I got an SUV. We can stack y'all in there. It's only 2 minutes drive. So, I mean, if you guys feel free to, that's totally fine. You can check that avenue of modality of healing at the well, as in like the well where you get water, .Canada. And that's our Instagram handle, the well.Canada. And my girlfriend does breathwork, yoga, and all that stuff. So we're always doing events like this. For all the women who like the full moon is when the women sit here and they do their thing. I have no idea what it's like because I have a penis and I've not been invited yet. This is, what we got to go through. But I mean, we're here for you all out there. So, I mean, you're not alone. There's community all around. You just got to reach out.
Beautiful, brother. You are a talented man and a beautiful soul. I'm very happy to know in my life. So thank you very much.
Hold you to that. Thank you.
And
thank you for having me, Shane.
Again soon.
Yeah, man, brother. Thank you so much for what you're doing and for spreading the awareness and for being such an amazing human being. I look forward to connecting you maybe one day in the flesh. And having that coffee or whatever that might look like, whatever beverage or meal that we decide to enjoy together. And in the meantime, man, I'm sending you so much love and light. Thank you for your amazing beard and your amazing humanity and your amazing soul and spirit, and for this amazing connection, for this amazing podcast that you're running. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, man. And bye, everybody at home.
Bye, everybody.